If you think the hardest part of growing up Amish was the clothes, the chores, or the rules everyone could see, you're wrong. Dead wrong. The rules that broke me were the ones nobody wanted to say out loud. The rules about love, about touch, about desire, about what a woman was expected to give and what she was never supposed to ask for. In the Amish world I knew, intimacy was treated like something sacred, but also something dangerous, something powerful, but also shameful. And by the time I understood what those rules had done to me, I was already carrying the weight of all 7. The first rule was simple: never talk about desire. Not really, not honestly, not in plain words. We were taught modesty so early that even normal curiosity felt like sin. Nobody sat me down and explained feelings. Nobody talked openly about attraction, chemistry, fear, or what it meant to trust someone with your body and heart. You were supposed to be pure, quiet, and disciplined. If you had questions, you swallowed them. If you had feelings, you prayed them away. And when you grow up believing silence is holiness, you start feeling guilty for being human. The second rule was that love had to begin in public, not private. People romanticize Amish courtship, but they never talk about how watched it feels. It starts at singings, group gatherings, buggy rides, and careful little moments where everybody knows exactly what is happening even when nobody says it. A boy offers you a ride home and suddenly that small gesture means everything, but even then you are not really free. You are being observed by family, by church, by community, by the entire system that raised you. Every smile feels noticed, every rumor travels. So instead of learning how to build intimacy naturally, you learn how to perform innocence under pressure. The third rule was that touch had to stay locked away until marriage, but emotions did not wait for marriage. That was one of the cruelest parts. We were expected to control ourselves without ever being taught what healthy closeness looked like. You could spend months, sometimes years, moving toward someone, thinking about them, imagining a future, but the physical side of that bond stayed wrapped in tension and fear. There was no real space to learn comfort slowly, no language for boundaries, no honest conversation about readiness, just a giant wall between before and after, as if human connection could be switched on like a lamp the night after a wedding. The fourth rule was that everything serious had to stay secret until it was almost too late to breathe. Even engagement could be private for a long time. That secrecy changes you. You start treating your own heart like contraband. You begin to believe that even joy must be hidden until authority approves it. I remember how strange that felt, wanting something so life-changing while pretending everything was ordinary. It teaches you to disconnect from your own emotions, to smile when you are scared, to nod when you are uncertain, to keep moving forward because the machine is already moving and nobody wants to be the one who stops it. The fifth rule was the one that shattered me most. Before marriage, intimacy was treated like a line you could not cross. After marriage, it was suddenly your duty to understand it, carry it, and never complain about it. That jump is bigger than people realize. One day you are expected to be untouched, inexperienced, silent, and ashamed of wanting anything. The next day you are supposed to become a wife. Ready, calm, giving, mature. It is one of the harshest emotional whiplashes I have ever seen. People talk about the Amish wedding like it is beautiful and sacred, and maybe parts of it are. But nobody asks what it feels like for two people with almost no honest preparation to step into the most vulnerable part of marriage under the weight of religion, expectation, and fear. The sixth rule was that a good woman made room for everybody except herself. That rule was never written on a wall, but every Amish girl understood it. Your body was supposed to be modest. Your voice was supposed to be soft. Your needs were supposed to be small, and if intimacy felt lonely, confusing, painful, or one-sided, what were you supposed to do with that? There was no vocabulary for it, no safe place to unpack it, no culture of saying, I matter here too. So a lot of women learned to disappear inside their own marriages, not because they had no feelings, but because they were trained to treat those feelings as less important than peace, obedience, and duty. The seventh rule was the most devastating of all. Whatever happened behind closed doors stayed there, and you carried it alone. That kind of silence can break a person without leaving a visible mark. When intimacy is wrapped in secrecy from the beginning, shame grows fast. You stop knowing what is normal. You stop knowing what is loving. You stop knowing whether your sadness is a warning sign or just another burden you are supposed to bear with grace. And once that happens, you can live inside a marriage, inside a community, inside a faith, and still feel completely unseen. That is the part outsiders miss. They think strict rules create stronger love. Sometimes they do the opposite. Sometimes they create fear dressed up as virtue. Sometimes they produce obedience without emotional safety. Sometimes they teach people how to look pure instead of how to be close. And when I finally left, that was one of the hardest things to unlearn. Not just the rules themselves, but the voice they left inside me. The voice that said wanting tenderness was selfish. The voice that said asking questions was dangerous. The voice that said silence was safer than honesty. What broke me was not one dramatic moment. It was years of being taught that intimacy belonged to God, to marriage, to duty, to the community, to everybody except the person living inside my own skin. It took me a long time to understand that real intimacy is not fear. It is not performance. It is not silence. It is not doing what is expected while your heart slowly disappears. Real intimacy is safety. It is honesty. It is being able to speak without shame and be touched without fear and loved without feeling erased. So when people ask me whether Amish intimacy rules protect people or break them, my answer is the same every time. Both. They were meant to guard purity, but they also taught many of us to mistrust our own humanity. And that is a wound that does not heal overnight. If you think this sounds extreme, I understand. I used to think it was normal too. But once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. And trust me, this is only one part of the story. There are other Amish marriage truths people romanticize all the time, and the reality is even heavier than most people are ready for.